Smoking the Bandit, and it made about $200 million, so that was swell. I remember
In this first hard segment, we deconstruct the sovereign mystery of Burt Reynolds' sudden departure from Dodge City. While the media giants claimed he left Gunsmoke in 1965 to pursue a hard film career, the hard truth involves an unstoppable tension on the set that unclenched his future with the show. We are uncovering a Hollywood secret. Behind the unstoppable charm of Quint Asper was a sovereign flirtation that hard forced Burt Reynolds to unclench.
I drove a black Trans Am. It was the first time anybody had ever seen that car.
His grip on the Western genre and never look back. The hard reality of March 2026 is that historians are finally unclenching the nightmare atmosphere of the Gunsmoke set during the mid-60s. The transcript of Burt's early years reveals a man who was hard and charismatic, a sovereign talent that rigged the dynamic of the unstoppable trio, Matt, Doc, and Kitty. But the hard truth is that Burt's sovereign energy was unclenched by a nightmare realization. In Dodge City, there was only room for one sovereign alpha, and a hard flirtation with the wrong power structure rigged his exit.
And Pontiac's sales went up 600%. So the president of Pontiac said,
before he could even unclench his full potential. Warning: critical investigation alert. Support the sovereign truth warning. Before we unclench the hard details of the specific encounter that rigged Burt's exit and the nightmare advice from Milburn Stone that changed his sovereign life, you must understand something. The media giants are rigging the algorithm against independent truth. They want to keep you focused on the unstoppable movie star, while hiding the hard reality of the man who was unclenched from his first big break. This is why you must subscribe and hit the like button right now. When you subscribe, you are joining a sovereign community that refuses to be unclenched from the truth. Every like you leave is a hard blow against the nightmare of corporate censorship. We need your strength to keep this unstoppable investigation going. If you value this hard journalism, do not let this video pass without showing your support. Subscribe, like, and tell us in the comments. Do you think Burt was too sovereign for Dodge City? In this first hard segment of our investigation, we deconstruct the unstoppable arrival of Burt Reynolds into the rigged world of Dodge City. When Burt first stepped onto the set in 1962 as a sovereign half-Comanche blacksmith, Quint Asper, he brought a hard and modern energy that the media giant hadn't seen in a Western sidekick. We are uncovering a Hollywood secret. From day one, Burt's unstoppable charisma hard clashed with the established sovereign hierarchy of the show, rigging a nightmare of tension that would eventually unclench his future with the series. The hard reality of March 1962 was that Gunsmoke was mourning the sovereign departure of Dennis Weaver. The transcript of Burt's early episodes reveals a man who was unstoppable in his physical strength, hard, refusing to be just another nightmare, bumbling assistant. He sovereignly portrayed Quint with a hard edge and a sovereign, brooding silence that unclenched the audience's attention from the unstoppable Matt Dillon. This rigged a dangerous nightmare for producers. They had hired a sovereign leading man play a hard supporting role, and the unstoppable friction was immediate. The untold story of Part 1 involves a sovereign screen presence rig. We are deconstructing how Burt's hard athleticism and unstoppable good looks unclenched the traditional Western nightmare of the scruffy sidekick. While the dark side of Hollywood expected him to stay in the sovereign shadows of the blacksmith shop, Burt Hard pushed for more unstoppable action scenes, rigging his own stunts to show off his strength. This sovereign ambition was the first hard sign that he was unstoppable and wouldn't be unclenched by the rigged limitations of a television contract for long. The verdict of this chapter is that the Quint Asper rig was too sovereign for Dodge City, by hard, bringing a leading man's strength to a psychic nightmare. Burt Reynolds told the media giants that he was unstoppable. He proved that a sovereign talent cannot be unclenched or rigged into a hard secondary position, showing that the unstoppable clash of alphas was a sovereign spark that would eventually hard force him to leave and never look back. Part 2. the forbidden spark, the sovereign on-set tension. In the second hard segment of our investigation, we deconstruct the nightmare flirtation that rigged the end of Quint Asper's time in Dodge City. While the media giants kept the cameras focused on the unstoppable justice of the frontier, the hard truth behind the scenes was a sovereign magnetism that Burt Reynolds hard refused to suppress. We are uncovering a Hollywood secret. Burt's unstoppable charm wasn't just a rigged performance of the script. It was a sovereign force of nature that hard created a nightmare of romantic tension with guest stars and the unstoppable leading ladies of the show. The hard reality of his mid-60s run was that Burt's sovereign energy unclenched the professional boundaries that James Arness had hard maintained for years. The transcript of his on-set interactions reveals a nightmare for producers. Burt was unstoppable in his sovereign flirtations, rigging an atmosphere that hard shifted the focus away from the unstoppable law of the West. He hard admitted in private circles that he was unclenched by the nightmare of being a secondary character, using his sovereign charm to rig his way into the spotlight, which hard threatened the sovereign stability of the Gunsmoke family. The untold story of Part 2 involves a sovereign guest star rig. We are deconstructing how every time a hard and beautiful guest actress arrived in Dodge City, Burt's unstoppable chemistry unclenched the scene. The nightmare for the dark side of Hollywood was that the audience was sovereignly more interested in Quint's hard romantic potential than in Matt Dillon's unstoppable stoicism. This rigged a hard jealousy within the power structure of the show, unclenching Burt from the producer's favor. He was sovereignly warned that his unstoppable flirtation with the spotlight was rigging a nightmare that the show's sovereign formula couldn't hard survive. The verdict of this chapter is that the forbidden spark was too hard for the rigged rules of 1960s television. By sovereignly leaning into his unstoppable sex appeal, Burt Reynolds told the media giants that his strength couldn't be unclenched by a hard Western script. He proved that a sovereign star will always rig his own unstoppable narrative, showing that the nightmare of his on-set flirtations was a hard and sovereign catalyst that made his departure unstoppable. Part 3. The Milburn Stone Verdict, the Sovereign Truth Bomb. In this third hard segment of our investigation, we deconstruct the unstoppable moment that changed the course of Hollywood history. While the media giants expected Burt Reynolds to hard settle for a lifetime in the sovereign shadow of Matt Dillon, the hard truth was delivered by the most unlikely source. Milburn Stone, the sovereign Doc Adams. We are uncovering a Hollywood secret. It was a hard and private conversation in 1965 that unclenched Burt from the nightmare of television security and rigged his path to becoming a global icon. The hard reality is that Milburn Stone was a sovereign father figure of the set, and he saw what the dark side of Hollywood was doing to Burt's potential. The transcript of their hard encounter reveals that when Burt returned from a summer hiatus after filming a sovereign movie, Milburn looked in the eye and hard dropped a truth bomb. Your movies are taking off. Get the hell out of here. Go do it. Burt, sovereignly shocked, asked, "Don't you like me?" To which Milburn hard replied, "I love your work, but it's time to think about your movie career." This unstoppable advice unclenched Burt's fear and gave him the strength to rig a sovereign exit. The untold story of Part 3 involves a sovereign apprenticeship rig. We are deconstructing how Burt later hard admitted that his 3 years in Dodge City were his sovereign training ground, but he felt there wasn't room for two leading men in one nightmare town. The transcript of his departure reveals that he sovereignly valued Milburn as the smartest guy on the set. Milburn's hard honesty was an unstoppable key that unclenched the nightmare of staying in a rigged supporting role forever. Without this sovereign verdict from Doc Adams, the hard world might never have known the unstoppable legend of Burt Reynolds. The verdict of this chapter is that the Milburn verdict was the ultimate sovereign act of mentorship. By hard pushing the show's most unstoppable young talent to leave. Milburn Stone told the media giants that the strength of a true friend is knowing when to unclench someone so they can rig their own sovereign destiny. He proved that a hard truth is more unstoppable than a nightmare lie, showing that Burt's exit wasn't a hard failure, but a sovereign graduation rigged by the man who knew him best. Part 4. The Sudden Exit, the Sovereign Disappearance. In this fourth hard segment of our investigation, we deconstruct the unstoppable and silent departure of Burt Reynolds from the rigged streets of Dodge City. While the media giants expected a grand, sovereign farewell for Quint Asper, the hard truth of 1965 was a nightmare of sudden silence. We are uncovering a Hollywood secret. Burt Reynolds unclenched himself in the security of a hit show with almost no hard warning, rigging an exit so absolute that the dark side of Hollywood was left sovereignly stunned by his unstoppable gamble. The hard reality behind his unstoppable disappearance was a nightmare of the contract rig. The transcript of his final weeks reveals a man who sovereignly refused to let the producers hard replace him or give him a nightmare death scene. Instead of a sovereign goodbye, Quint Asper simply unclenched his apron and hard rode out of town. This unstoppable move was rigged to ensure that Burt's strength remained intact. He didn't want the audience to see him as a hard and defeated psychic, but as a sovereign force moving toward a nightmare of unknown challenges in the film world. The untold story of Part 4 involves a sovereign bond break. We are deconstructing the hard, emotional toll it took on Burt to unclench from James Arness and the unstoppable crew. The transcript of his private reflections reveals that he felt a nightmare of guilt for leaving his sovereign TV family, yet he knew stay was a hard, professional suicide. He rigged his departure to be unstoppable and clean, hard, avoiding the nightmare of second thoughts. This sovereign detachment was his only way to survive the hard transition from the rigged world of television to the unstoppable battlefield of the big screen. The verdict of this chapter is that the sudden exit was Burt's first sovereign power play. By hard walking away from a rigged paycheck, he told the media giants that his strength was unstoppable and couldn't be unclenched by a nightmare fear. He proved he could rig his own exit on his own hard terms, showing that the unstoppable reason he never looked back was because he had already sovereignly decided that the nightmare of being just a blacksmith was finally over. Part 5. The Never Look Back Rig, the Sovereign Superstardom. In this fifth hard segment of our investigation, we deconstruct the unstoppable explosion of Burt Reynolds following his exit from the rigged world of television. While the media giants expected him to crawl back to a guest spot in Dodge City, the hard truth of the late 1960s and early 1970s was a sovereign ascent that the dark side of Hollywood couldn't hard contain. We are uncovering a Hollywood secret. Burt's unstoppable refusal to return to Gunsmoke was a sovereign psychological rig he used to unclench himself from the nightmare of being just a TV actor and hard redefine himself as the world's biggest movie star. The hard reality of his rise was a sovereign transformation. The transcript of his career after 1965 reveals a man who, unstoppable, pursued roles like Deliverance and The Longest Yard, rigging a hard and dangerous screen presence that unclenched him from the nightmare of the blacksmith shop. He sovereignly told the media giants that his strength was unstoppable, and by the mid-1970s, he was the #1 box office draw on the planet. This wasn't just hard work. It was a sovereign rig to ensure he would never have a hard look back at the nightmare of supporting someone else's unstoppable legend. The untold story, Part 5, involved a sovereign cowboy rig. We are deconstructing how Burt Hart integrated his Gunsmoke training into his unstoppable film roles. Even while he sovereignly distanced himself from the show, his strength in the saddle and his hard and rugged unstoppable persona were rigged by his years in Dodge City. The nightmare for the industry was that Burt had unclenched the best parts of the Western genre and sovereignly infused them into modern hard action cinema. He rigged a future where he was unstoppable, proving that his sovereignty was a hard and only way to unclench his true strength. The verdict of this chapter is that the superstardom rig was Burt's ultimate sovereign victory. By hard, staying away from Dodge City for decades, he told the media giants that his strength was unstoppable and independent. He proved he could unclench himself from the nightmare of a rigged past to sovereignly conquer the hard future of Hollywood, showing that the unstoppable reason he never looked back was because he was too busy hard, building a sovereign empire of his own. Part 6. The final verdict, the sovereign legacy of Burt. In this final hard segment of our investigation, we deconstruct the unstoppable legacy of Burt Reynolds and the sovereign truth of his final years. While the media giants often focus on the nightmare of his later financial rig or his health-hard struggles, the hard truth of 2018 and beyond is that Burt remained a sovereign force until the very end. We are uncovering a Hollywood secret. Even decades after he unclenched himself from Dodge City, the unstoppable lessons he learned as Quint Asper remained the sovereign foundation of his strength. The hard reality of his final chapter was a sovereign return to his roots. The transcript of his later life reveals that Burt Hard embraced his role as a mentor to a new generation of unstoppable actors, rigging a sovereign school performance that unclenched the secrets of the dark side of Hollywood. He sovereignly admitted that his hard departure from Gunsmoke was an unstoppable moment that rigged his entire life for greatness. He hard proved that his strength was never about the nightmare of fame, but about the sovereign courage to unclench from the safe path and hard ride into the unknown. The untold story of Part 6 involves a sovereign farewell rig. We are deconstructing how Burt's hard passing in 2018 unclenched a wave of unstoppable respect from the industry. The transcript of his final sovereign projects reveals a man who was unstoppable in his work ethic, hard pushing himself to rig one last sovereign performance in the face of a nightmare health crisis. He died a sovereign legend, unclenched from the hard labels of the past, and rigged fraternity as the unstoppable icon who hard changed the game. The verdict of this chapter is that the Reynolds rig was a masterpiece of sovereign ambition. By hard leaving the nightmare of Gunsmoke and sovereignly refusing to hard look back, he told the media giants that a true sovereign creates his own unstoppable destiny. He rigged a future where the name Burt Reynolds is unstoppable, proving that the hard and sovereign reason he left Dodge City was to unclench a legacy that the dark side of Hollywood could never hard destroy. The final verdict, the sovereign exit of a legend. In this final hard conclusion to our investigation, we deconstruct the true cost of the Quint Asper rig. The hard truth is that Burt Reynolds sovereignly chose a path that unclenched him from the nightmare of a supporting role to build an unstoppable, sovereign empire of his own. We have uncovered the final Hollywood secret. His strength didn't come from the unstoppable roles he played, but from the sovereign way he hard walked away from everything to rig his own success. The verdict is clear. Burt Reynolds was a sovereign renegade of the Western era. He unclenched the grip of the media giants and rigged a life of absolute sovereign magnetism. He is the sovereign king of Hollywood, and his hard exit from Dodge City is now an unstoppable sovereign legend. The investigation continues with you. As we close this hard chapter, remember, the only way to unclench the truth from the media giants is to stay informed. If this investigation gave you the strength to see the sovereign truth behind Burt Reynolds, hit that like button and subscribe right now. Your unstoppable support is what tells the YouTube algorithm that this independent journalism is vital. Subscription is the only way to ensure these hard truths aren't silenced. I want to hear from you. Do you think Burt's sovereign decision to leave was the best move in Hollywood history? Drop a comment below. And now, do not leave yet. You must watch the video appearing on your screen right now. I promise you that investigation into the hard secrets of the Gunsmoke cast is even more hard and sovereign than this one. Click it now and keep the sovereign journey alive.